Okay, let's continue with this concept of this GLSL versus cycles, and I'll show you really where it comes into play. So now in this case, most of these buildings have been converted over to GSL materials, except for these ones that have white in them like that, and I may or may not keep them. But in this case, the only other thing that's not set is this material on the ground down here. And if you notice over here, let me see if I select this and I go into edit mode, well, you can see I have city block is what I'm actually using. It says nodes, so that means it's a cycles based material, and so that's why it doesn't really give any nice effect. But GLSL can give actually some pretty nice rendering. So let's go into it, and I always like to verify this by pressing A, make sure everything's deselected, and the way to find out which of the materials is set, if I was to go press this one and say select, nothing comes up. So I come up to city block and I press select, so it must be that one that's active, and it is. So in order to change it, I'll just click down to this one here, which is a regular non-node based material, and I'll just reassign it, and you can see it changes a little bit in there. So now when I go out of edit mode, now you actually see the nice shading that's starting to take place relative to the hard white color. So I'm in Blender Render and in texture mode, so this is my GLSL. One thing you'll notice if you look at these buildings in here up close, I can actually see from through this window all the way through the other side of the building. You see there's no inside of the building visible like that, right? Well, it is actually there. And in fact, if you start the game engine, you can even start the game engine from within Blender Render by pressing P. It starts it up, and now you see the inside of the building, and that's because I've built walls on the insides, because by default the polygons are only single-sided, and so I know it works. And so the value for this for me is that I can start building the scene like this, and I can have access to it, and then I'll start illuminating it the way I want, because I haven't really painted the scene in GLSL mode right now. Notice my lights are missing in here, so I'll put in GLSL based lights as well, and I'll start kind of painting the scene, kind of like I did with my tornado simulator. There's a lot of small subtle lights placed all around the scene in the tornado simulator, and I'll end up doing the same thing in here. Just kind of like, imagine it was a paint canvas and you're just painting your lights to give it the effect. Well, that's what I have to do in here to bring this to life in GSL. And the nice thing about this in this mode is, well, of course we can run it, and there's the boat running along, and you can see the wake being generated in here, and all these buildings now that I can just import into a game development environment and carry the materials along with it, and then I can start using the game engine physics and then turn this into a city scene that has gameplay as well. And then anytime I want, I can just switch over to cycles nodes if I want a really nice rendered version of it. Or in some cases what I'll do, I'll just save this as a separate file. Maybe I'll just call it the same name, and I'll just call it a cycles file. I'll have that appended to it, and then I'll just switch everything over to cycles mode like that, and then I have the best of both worlds. So it's a really useful thing to have, particularly if you're working towards doing game development, and that's where a lot of this is heading for me. They're not necessarily always games I'm developing, but I'm developing simulations as well, and so that's why I own this boat. When you see in here, well, this one I don't have the other objects back in the back of the boat, but it works nice because then this can be an active boat for, say, fishing or something like that, right? So anyway, okay, all right, well, that's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.